Okay, so welcome to our next video for COMP3218, Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name is Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with
Callum Sportforth
and Tom Blount.
So we're going to have a look at 3 games that the students have submitted as part of their first coursework. Tom, do you want to say a little bit about what we asked them to do?
So this first coursework was all about core dynamics and tutorials. So we asked each pair of students to produce a small game prototype that had an interesting core dynamic and supporting mechanics, and that they introduced through a set of tutorial levels.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's have a look at our first game, which I think was called ISO Wanderer.
Yes.
This one.
So I saw this one in Expo. Have you seen this?
So
I've not seen this one.
Excellent.
I saw this at the Expo as well. So yeah, you should definitely have a go at this.
Okay, that's not how I expected those controls to work.
Use the arrow keys or WAS to move.
Okay. That's weird.
Okay. So they actually changed those during development. They had it so that W went sort of 90 degrees to where it's going right now.
Right. Okay.
I think this way was an improvement, but it's because of the perspective, it's a little bit odd.
Go deeper, but be careful not to fall.
Which is slightly misleading, because you have to fall to get to the next level.
The bridge. Left click to shoot the spheres to make the platform solid. Okay.
What does this red portal do?
You'll find out.
Makes you go red.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So now you can shoot the red spheres with red bullets. So this is a big problem with this isometric camera angle, and it will come up a lot.
Getting the levels is difficult, isn't it? Okay.
Okay, so they didn't introduce that. So that's the first time we've seen these green spheres come in.
Coloured objects can only be interacted with if you are the same colour.
Does it mean walk through or no?
I think it just told you to shoot them. That you were talking while you.
So this is the thing. They use this sort of turquoise cylinder as like the end flag for the level.
Yeah.
It would be kind of nice if that was consistent throughout. So the first level you go into a tunnel, the second level you fall down a thing. If it had all been that sort of same thing.
Colour shards. These also change your colour, but are one-time use.
So
if you'd accidentally picked that, you'd be stuck. So you have to go to the right-hand side, shoot that red one,
I see.
and pick up that.
That's quite a nice little bit of.
Hey.
Okay,
don't jump the gun. So
we have escalated here, clearly.
Yeah, although not as bad as it first appears, I think.
That's it. It looks very complex, but it's actually not too bad. It's still definitely possible to get stuck. But as long as you sort of peel the layers back.
Yeah. That's quite nice. So there was a very linear progression there till now, where suddenly I've got to choose one of these 2 power-ups to pick up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do this wrong.
So I don't think it'll matter.
As long as you shoot them before you pick up the other one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because there's any rate limiting on that.
So I think it looks great. There's some odd choices to the look. So for example, it says grey objects are affected by gravity except when they're transparent, basically.
Yeah.
So some funny things like that. And
so that was a white object that was transparent.
Look grey because it was there.
But yeah, I think
that's quite nice.
It's nice the complexity's gone back down to introduce a new element. Actually.
Yes. And the other funny thing is, I find it really difficult to remember what the different pickups do.
Yes.
So these crystals look very similar to the shards.
Yes. So you've got to collect all of these.
But you can only collect them when you're the
right
then
colour. It goes, and you have to be the right colour. Okay. So that's fine. And then you end up on this one, and you're like, which are the squares and which are the cylinders and But once you figure it out, I think, and this is actually quite a nicely designed level. Actually,
that's C3.
Yep.
This is what I mean. See, it's kind of like.
Right. Okay.
So here you go. What you're going to do? Make that solid. You're going to shoot that one. Ooh. Okay.
So that first
get this and get that. So now you can shoot that one.
And then I need to shoot this.
So this was the bit that always caught me out. I could never.
Yeah, it's quite hard. I was okay with that bit. Is when you get to shoot the green one. It's like, where is that green one?
Hang on, have I? No, I'm okay. So I now need to go like this
and shoot that. When it comes down, and you go up there and shoot the
mouse.
Oh, so they were also saying. So I don't know if you've noticed the text pop-ups that normally they pop up in the middle of the screen and then move over to the side.
Yeah.
After a couple of seconds, they forgot to add that for this level, which is a shame because this is sort of crucial to see where everything is.
That's cool.
All right. Okay. That was the game. Oh, and back to the start.
So let's go through it because I think there's a lot to like about this game. Right?
I really like it.
So let's think about the presentation first. So information design, graphics, audio. I don't think there's any. Is there any audio?
I don't think
Not
so.
that I can tell.
So that's a bit of a shame. It would have been nice again, just some little things. But the graphics, really nice. I think.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it's effective. It's
really simple. But again, it's why is it effective? It's effective because they've used colours very consistently. And because they've chosen a kind of aesthetically appealing kind of look, right? So that kind of that isomorphic projection works really well, and it's just a lot of quality. I think
that's it. It's more or less consistent. So there's some things like the end of the level sort of differs a little bit, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah. And the camera, like the perspective camera, or the lack of it, can be really confusing in certain places, particularly as you've got to aim for particular spots.
Yeah, but the game is quite forgiving about those parts because it's not like if you have limited bullets, it would be a nightmare. But because you can just have a go, I think it works quite well.
Yeah.
But you can imagine puzzle layouts that were problematic. I don't think any of these are, but
I mean, you could certainly design them like if you were going for the whole sort of optical illusion, then maybe you'd design them so they were deliberately like that. But
yeah. What do you think about the information design?
So again, there's limited amounts of information to convey, other than like the key one is the color of your thing, and I suppose to a lesser extent the number of crystals or whatever you need to pick up.
Yeah. But I think but again, the consistency works really well. So if you look here, you've got 3 different things that are one of 3 different colours, but you know exactly what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So you know that turns you red. You know what colour you are. You know what colour the blocks are, and how they will you'll get rid of them by shooting them. So again, it's sort of the simplicity is what was interesting. You look like you were firing blue there when you were green. But I think the simplicity is the strength of it.
So the other nice thing about this level is it forces you to go back through those things to show that they're multiple use.
Yeah. So in terms of where we would place it, in terms of presentation quality, I mean for me it seems pretty high. Yeah. So excellent would be key information shown clearly, consistent fitting graphics, good use of audio. So I guess the fact it's got no audio,
I think the lack of audio drops it down, but I'd still maybe put it between good and excellent.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think. What about gameplay?
It's certainly very satisfying to play. I'm impressed at the level of puzzle they managed to get in, even in the tutorial.
There's some nice combos.
It's not... They've put together the different mechanics of the game to create some quite interesting levels.
Yeah.
And they've done a good job of having just enough mechanics to make you just have to pause and think about it.
And one of the things that we talked about between at the good and excellent sort of level is that a set of complementary mechanics. So they've got a number of things going on here. They've got the switches, they've got the areas that change of colour, they've got the shooting the blocks out and the falling the blocks. So they have a number of mechanics and they bring them together in different ways. Do you feel that the controls are good?
Except when I drive off the edge of things.
Yeah.
Generally, I think so. The WASD to move in the isometric perspective is quite weird. It's not so bad when you're used to it.
What would you do alternatively?
That's the thing. I don't know.
Other than turn your keyboard at an angle.
Yeah. I mean, you could do WASD to W is actually the diagonal move like that. I don't know if that would make it better or not without testing it.
I think So I think one of the things that makes this quite nice actually is that you're moving on rails, so that you're effectively when you press in a particular direction. It's one of those games where you tend to only you tend to only press in one direction at once, and it's when you're playing in multiple directions that's when you're falling off, right?
Yeah. Oh, I've messed up, haven't I?
So I mean, okay. So I think the controls are clearly usable and they look pretty smooth. Meaningful play?
Yeah, I think so.
And is it good fun? Is it enjoyable?
So I mean, the core of the puzzle here is choosing the order in which to do things.
Yeah.
Everything else is a little bit superfluous to that. or at least that's the heart of it. And yeah, it's quite a satisfying little problem to solve.
I think you get a nice overview of the whole level at once, so you can just sort of sit there and say, okay, I'll need to do this, and then I'll need to get this one, and then I'll switch here.
Very clean.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I actually think this kind of fits in the excellent category for gameplay. I think that it has a set of complementary mechanics. They combine together in interesting ways. It controls well, and you do have enjoyable and meaningful play. I think it's kind of...
No, I have to agree with you on that one. Yeah.
What about the bugs? Any?
Aside from that tutorial, I have not noticed any. No.
Which one?
This tutorial being stuck in the middle of the screen.
Oh yes.
Aside from that, I haven't noticed any issues with the controls, with anything not triggering. It's all been pretty fine, actually.
Yeah. It's fairly complex. So you've got that little minor bug with it being in the middle, but I don't even know if I'd have noticed that unless you pointed out. Oh, there you go. So it clips off the top. So I mean, it's certainly at least good. There are only minor bugs, and these are uncommon. I might even be tempted to knock it up a little bit and say actually it's quite complex and it's halfway to excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the brief, the level design itself then? So setting aside the tutorial for the minute, how do you think they've done in terms of designing these levels?
I think it's quite good. The pacing is nice. It steadily increases in difficulty. They introduce new mechanics each time.
Yep.
I think... I mean, so it's lacking that the sort of risk-reward thing that we've talked about at points. But again, you seem to get this with sort of puzzle games. Like having sort of one set way of solving the puzzle isn't necessarily terrible.
No, I mean, I think it would still have been nice to try to get some elements of that in there. But you're right, I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think that what I like about the levels they've got here is that they manage to convey all of those mechanics really nicely. So none of the mechanics are in here, kind of nothing's superfluous, everything is needed. As you said, they're introduced gradually, there's really good pacing. So as I said, the only thing I would think of is maybe the risk reward thing is slightly problematic. And I'm not quite sure what you're doing to do that, given that we asked them to focus very strongly on the core dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you might have had something like a timer in order to complete the level.
I feel it's interesting because I feel this might become a frustrating game with a timer. It's just because the controls are not 100% perfect. Yeah. And same for the shooting mechanics.
But that would have given you some of the risk reward stuff, because you could have, you'd had different routes through, some of which were easier but quicker and that kind of thing. So. Yeah, it feels that you need some new mechanic of some sort to make that work, and then that risks the purity of the design a little bit. But I still think it's kind of like a slight problem in that you don't have an awful lot of choice in how to go through it. Still, I mean, I still think it's at that kind of good/excellent level.
I agree.
Which side of that barrier though? I mean, or again, maybe we just agree to kind of put it in the middle and say, well, it would be excellent, but we did ask them to think about some of to have some variety in levels in terms of the way in which approach them, and that isn't here.
So I think they've done a really nice job of putting the levels together in quite a varied way, actually.
Yeah. So
they've got a mixture of ones that are very much linear, very much you need to go through, and there is a very fixed order in which you do things. And they've got some other nice ones which present slight twists on that. Yeah. So, for example, the shooting around obstacle we saw in one of the earlier levels, I've not actually seen that again, I don't think, in another level, and they keep making it a little bit fresher, a little bit more varied, and I think that's a really good thing to do with the design.
So I would say the levels are still very linear, even if they don't appear. Like this one, for example,
yes,
you have to do things in a certain order.
But my point is, in the very linear levels, you are forced to do things in a certain order. In this, they're increasing the scope for you to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's true.
So I could quite easily go, not in this bit.
Excellent example of mistake.
But if you take that, please.
But if I take this, do that, change colour before I take.
If we forget about the goals, risks, and rewards thing, do we think this is excellent or even prizeworthy? Because prizeworthy is good, varied pacing. well-balanced goals, symbols linked to alternative paths. It's kind of it comes in a bit more then, isn't it? So it's kind of limited to excellent.
I think so, yeah. I think it, yeah.
So you're happy with if we go with the excellent level?
Excellent, maybe borderline good.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I think I'm with Tom here that the problem is with a puzzle game. Very often you want to have one way of solving it, but the question is then how do you bring in something which gives you that kind of varied approach? And the way that puzzle games do that is that you have to have multiple ways of solving the puzzle, some of which are better than others but more challenging.
Yeah,
that's actually really hard to do, but it is possible. Right?
So in something like this, you could put in perhaps there is an extra bit of the level that gives you, the classic stars.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say
there
are 3 stars in a level,
and you've got to pick them all up, and you can complete it with 2 or something. So, okay, I think maybe for that reason we'll put it in the borderline. Okay. But I think they've done a nice job. Tutorial design.
So it ties in very closely with the level design on this. They sort of introduce a new mechanic. They make sure you use it because you have to complete the level to do it.
Very consistent in the way they introduce something and make you use it. I also quite like the way that they're introduced. So that the text is there to assist you, but it's not too much. It's like a single line of text.
So also one of the things we've sort of said in previous videos, like it shows up right in the center of the screen where our eyes are focusing, and then it doesn't disappear, it goes over to the side, so we can still refer to it if we need it.
Yeah. I do really like the fact that it sticks around because it's something we've not seen a huge amount of.
Yeah, and you can get into so much trouble if you miss stuff, can't you?
Absolutely.
So in terms of the tutorial design, I would say this is clearly an integrated tutorial, and it introduces the information in a logical way. And I think it does build on because you're doing more and more stuff and you're integrating more and more bits. So for me, it's clearly at the excellent level. So the only question would be, is it novel enough to justify being a bit higher? So where you reinterpret, in particular this is where you kind of reinterpret and re-understand what's gone before.
I'm not sure it quite pushes that boundary. I think it's done a very, very good job, particularly of using the levels to force the player to understand how the mechanics integrate into the game design.
So a kind of a good, solid, excellent.
Solid excellent.
Which is no mean feat, so that's great. Okay, what did they say for their core design, Tom?
So, as you might expect, they said their core design was spatial reasoning.
Yeah.
And they explain it by all of the elements are so even though some of the walls are destructible, it's to progress further through the space. So buttons that make platforms solid, crystals that have to be collected, but they open the exit.
So this is where some of those decisions, which we've said have been a little bit problematic, now work for them, right? Because it's very pure. It clearly has one focus on it.
So even though you're collecting things, you're collecting those things, like you're having to reason through the space to get to them, and then you get them to reason further through the space.
Yeah. So I think this is really good, actually. I mean, again, excellent would be a clear core dynamic that suits the theme and is well supported by an integrated set of mechanics. So the question for me is whether it's any higher than that.
And the prizeworthy is the resonant audio and visual choices. And again, they're sort of let down a little by their lack of audio.
Yeah. I think because there's no audio, I think we have to limit it to maybe the excellent mark, but it is good. They had a chance here, I think, to get a bit higher. But all right. So and feedback. What was the feedback they got, and what was their response to it?
So initially, this game was going to be a sort of a top-down shooter.
Okay, so it's changed.
It's changed a little bit. So they were looking at the idea of sort of color switching mechanic, and you do more damage to certain enemies based on what color you are. So some of the feedback we gave to them was that might be a little bit complex. There's a lot of information you'd have to sort of convey to the player. So they sort of did some restructuring and turned it into this sort of more spatial reasoner puzzle-based thing. After that, so we gave them some more feedback, sort of talking about how sort of keeping the iteration cycles short. Yep. So if there wasn't an opportunity to get necessarily totally stuck. So if you get stuck in these, it's quite obvious, and you can just press R to restart to that start level. So they've taken that into account. Also, some of the tutorial tips. So they made sure it's sort of scaled properly to large monitors, which is quite useful.
Given we're playing on a 4K screen yet.
And they sort of deliberately kept them in the center of the screen, and then moved them to the side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the visual design is really striking. They've done a really good job. Okay, so in terms of the feedback then, I think that's pretty clearly articulated. I mean, it's difficult because they've made really quite sweeping changes. But it seems to me, again, excellent would be appropriate and effective changes have been made, and it seems to me that's the case. The prizeworthy one is imaginative. I mean, they have completely reconceptualized the game, but I don't think that quite counts as imaginative. I think we're kind of after something a bit subtler, a bit of way of interpreting what was said. But still, I would go for excellent. I think for feedback. I think so. Job. So really nice puzzle game. I'm really impressed with that one.
Yep. Okay.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to our next game. Our next game is, I think, Zombie Shoot 'em Up. So this is Zombie Shoot 'em Up.
Aha. Okay. So I remember this one. Yeah.
I've not seen this one.
I've not seen this one either. So
I think I saw this.
That's loud.
That's yes.
That's a satisfying noise, though, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
It just shows you how I also like the way that the sound slightly later than the actual shot. Right?
Oh, see, I was going to nitpick on that because
I like that. No, that's great.
All right.
So this is your health. So there was a wall there, and again, I think you're.
Okay.
So this caught me out when I played it. I'm interested to see what happens when you do it.
This is your It is my health bar game thing. Can I jump off the edge of the level here? So.
No, these are all walls, but just don't look like walls.
Okay, so let's see if I can.
Is that a wall there?
Run through
that is
this.
A door.
That's a door.
Ah.
So the problem is because of the angle. If you go through it in the middle of the green bar, you'll actually hit the wall. So you have to go through at the bottom of the green bar.
Oh, right. That's
because of the angle, which is a bit problematic. Yep, that's a zombie.
Yep.
So I almost think if they'd have gone through a sort of door straight ahead, and that door was green,
yeah,
and then when we turn the corner and we see another green bar,
it would make sense.
Then we know it's a door.
And there's there's opportunity to put one there, isn't there, to show people that.
Also, we just don't associate green with doors.
No, I mean, it does stand out, and it's different than, I suppose what they've said is, the idea is this is about killing zombies, so there's lots of blood everywhere, so green is a bit different.
Speaking of that, let's talk about the presentation a little bit. Would you say this art style is consistent? In fact, let me ask a different question. Where are we, Callum?
What is this place we are?
We look like we're in the holodeck before
I was going to say, I feel like it's going to be some kind of virtual reality, because that's the only sense I get from this.
It's a nice character model, although the animation of the model is not consistent with the movement of the model, but that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's going to moonwalk around the level. Which way are we actually going to go?
But you're right, there's
okay.
So not only is there an inconsistency, but all three elements are inconsistent, I think.
Yeah.
So the zombies look slightly cartoonish. We have the holodeck environment, and we have a kind of G.I. Joe style model, right?
So they sort of clash a little bit, unfortunately. Yeah. So, like you said, the sound design is quite nice. We get the sort of satisfying.
Well, except that's the only thing. But it is a good sound, right? It makes a big difference, I think. There's the door that should have been at the beginning.
So you've just spawned a whole bunch more zombies.
Mow them down.
There's nothing wrong with this.
That may have been a mistake.
No, I'm sure this will be fine. I can't see how this could possibly go wrong.
Why don't you back into a corner?
I got this.
That's bound to work. Okay, so in terms of presentation then, information design.
So we've got health, we've got the number of zombies that we need to kill.
The health bar is kind of a little bit out of the way, but it's centre and you can sort of see it.
Yeah, it's sort of the colours they've used, it's striking enough that it's easy to see out of the corner of your eye, this one.
I still think it would have been better if it had been on the actual character.
I think you're right, but it's... Okay, yeah.
I know where this is going, so I'm going to turn the volume down. Right.
This could take a while.
So, okay.
Really
so I kind of think that the graphics we've already talked about, and the audio as well. So in terms of where this sits, I would say that the key information is shown.
Yes. I wouldn't say the graphics.
The graphics are not consistent, but the audio. So it's a bit of a mismatch of things in terms of where we are in the.
So it's around satisfactory, possibly a little lower.
Yeah, I think so.
Some attempt at information design, constant but poorly chosen graphics. Some poorly chosen audio.
If we said halfway between a pass and satisfactory for the reason we just said, that kind of follows, right? Gameplay. Have you killed all the zombies now?
Yeah, 31. And I'm actually a little stuck on what I'm meant to be doing here.
So I think a whole bunch popped in when you went through one of those doors before, so maybe explore a bit more.
So that is it.
Oh, okay.
That is it. So basically, the whole game is this level. You've got the zombies you discover in the room, just there, and you've got the zombies that spawn on the top. and that's your lot. Right? So you could spawn again and try a different strategy. Gameplay, what's it like to control?
So the movement with WSD is actually fairly tight. The shooting is also pretty good as well. It goes where you'd expect it to, which is, I mean, it doesn't exactly hit the mouse, but you know, it follows the barrel of the gun, which is nice.
Yeah.
So actually, the controls are pretty tight, honestly.
So and play, and you can play, right? There is some meaningful play here, I think.
Definitely.
The problem, I think, is again, it's about simplicity, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So one of the things we're looking for here is a set of mechanics that leads to meaningful play, and you've really got, there are hardly any mechanics. I mean, you've got navigating around
and shooting,
and there's nothing else going on. So for me, that kind of limits how well this can be.
I've also just noticed the spelling mistake up there.
But I think, you know, a pass would be fewer inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, and limited play. It feels better than that.
Yeah,
but satisfactory is, you know, some mechanics, usable controls, some meaningful play, and I think the problem here is probably going to be in the level design. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So I think probably a satisfactory for the gameplay. Level design then. So what do we think about the level design that's there?
So I guess part of it is, why have they set things out in the way that they have? How much thought has gone into designing? Because unless they've just, you know, sort of stripped out an entire level and just copy pasted it in from somewhere else, they have put in some thought about, okay, we'll have a corridor here. Yeah. We'll have, you know, a couple of rooms here. So we'll spawn the zombies from this room.
So there are some nice things. So you go up, you meet one zombie. So you learn how that works and that kind of stuff. And then you come around the corner, and although you could come here first, actually you are naturally drawn to that other door. You see a door, you're tempted to go through the door, and then you find a group of zombies. And then you go to the last bit and you get a whole crowd of zombies. So they do kind of build up, but the level's not really doing anything. It's not.
So it's partly down also to, you know, the sort of zombies AI and things like that.
Yeah,
it's quite easy to manipulate them into just this nice. You can just sort of sheepdog around.
Yeah, but that's because you've got this kind of space. So again, you know,
so if you just set it all in this corridor,
so the environment exactly would give you a variety of stuff. So maybe the first thing that happens is you fight them in some narrow corridors, right? And then you fight them in a maze, and then you fight them in an open space, and then you kind of. So even without introducing any other mechanics, and just having what they have, just by using layout, you could get a lot more variety and interest going on, I think. So I don't think the level design is harmful, but I you know so again, pass would be a level design that demonstrates some of the mechanics, but poorly balanced or paced, and with a lack of clarity of the goals and risks and rewards. So I think it does demonstrate the mechanics, but there are hardly any mechanics.
Yeah.
It's not actually poorly balanced or paced, but it's just not very much here. But there is a kind of lack of clarity over the goals. Where are you going? Why are you doing it? There's no goal. Basically.
Well, there's no end as well. So, like, you kill all the zombies and then it just carries on.
You don't know what you're doing or why. So for me, I would actually argue this is somewhere near a pass, I think.
So interestingly, on the risk-reward spectrum as well, I just died, and it had no meaningful impact on the gameplay. I respawned with full health.
And you'd still killed that first zombie as well, so presumably.
But I still think it's kind of. I think it's past level. You know, I think it's.
I mean, there is certainly gameplay. There is certainly a level,
and the mechanics work within the scope of the thing. So,
it's just a bit limited in scope.
So, what about the tutorial design?
Well, again, there's some mechanics, but not really enough to have a complex tutorial. However, the way they do it, so they make sure you've got the movement sorted. They tell you how to shoot. And then they give you that first zombie to prove that you can get past it.
So, interesting, because if I... Sorry, let me to restart so I can actually get back to the tutorial. So, one thing I noticed right at the start is the first time I played this, I missed both of the first tutorial messages. So I saw WSD to walk, I then moved up, and then I missed use mouse to aim. I only saw this as your health.
So it's because they're in orange at the bottom of the screen, and it's off the level.
Yeah.
Against a sort of orangey grey background.
So even if they'd written it on the floor of their level, so you walked past it, then you could go back and look at it again.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they also introduce both the health bar and use mouse to aim at this point as well.
Yeah.
is challenging because it doesn't really give you a chance to...
And also you've got this confusing thing where it's saying this is your health, and that's drawing you up the corridor. And then you get to the top, and then you're left with confusion because it's not clear that's a door. And then it says hold, left mouse button to shoot, search, and destroy, but you're still trying to get through the door. So yeah, I think there are some issues. But
so they have tried to sort of stagger instructions.
Yeah, they tried to stagger it. So I think it clearly demonstrates some of the mechanics.
It does only introduce the 1 of 30 zombies when you've killed your first zombie.
Yeah.
So let's see. Can
I
so for me, these guys are now then?
For me, this is kind of somewhere between a pass and satisfactory.
I would agree with that.
In that a pass, a pass says it's poorly balanced or paced. I don't think it is. I just think there isn't a lot. But the pass does say there's a lack of clarity. And it also says it demonstrates some of the mechanics, and it demonstrates all the mechanics, but there's only one mechanic.
Yeah.
So I think it feels again something like a pass, but maybe push it up to halfway. So one of the things we forgot to mention was bugs. We didn't talk about bugs. So what do we think about the game itself? I mean, it seems to work okay. Again, really simple.
The fact that it doesn't end, is that a bug or is that just lack of polish?
I think so. I think if you don't have a kind of a start screen, that's sort of fair enough.
Yeah.
I think not having a point where it actually completes is a problem.
I think this puts it down to sort of a pass, and it's just like there aren't many bugs, but it's just too simple to have many bugs.
Yeah. So pass is a simple game. The game is playable, but there are frequent serious bugs. So I think because it plays relatively well, I would push it a bit higher.
Yeah, okay.
But it's so straightforward. So I think maybe put it halfway between pass and satisfactory again. Core dynamic. What did they say their core dynamic was?
So they said their core dynamic was shooting.
Shooting.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think charitably we could say they meant destruction.
Yeah, it would be nice if they used the right term, but okay.
The aim is to kill all of the zombies in the level by shooting them. Other mechanics involve walking and walking over invisible triggers. I feel like they may have misunderstood sort of what we mean by core dynamic. So they are features of the game, but they're not the thing that the player finds fun about it. So except for the part where you say you have to clear the level by destroying the zombies. Fair enough. That is the bit about your game that the player is supposed to find fun.
Yeah.
It's not the invisible triggers that help with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a destruction game, it is quite lacking. So destruction games you should be reveling in the destruction of the things you're destroying, right? A survival game is where you're kind of constantly on the edge and you're making decisions about trading off different routes to survival. But destruction is,
like destroying endless waves, getting high, getting combo points,
picking up better weapons, doing all that kind of stuff. I also kind of think that.
I mean, to be fair, messages like this sort of help emphasise that.
That's true. But mow them down with your BB gun.
And at least the goal is definitely in line with the destruction element as well.
And I think it's going back to the gameplay to a certain extent, but one of the things I said to them in the Let's Play was that in terms of meaningful decisions, it's a shame that you haven't got something in the weapon. So, for example, even if they changed the weapon so it did more damage than when you were close to the zombies, now you have a meaningful decision about do you hover around really close to them in order to get damage, or do you hang back and snipe, right? But because it's just so flat and consistent, it really lacks variety. So in terms of their core dynamic, I mean, they kind of... a core dynamic, so satisfactory would be a core dynamic that is a poor match for the theme of the game, or is supported by only some of the mechanics and audio-visual choices. And again, I think that there's nothing out of the ordinary here.
Yeah, again, it comes down to
it's not enough.
It is supported by all of the mechanics. Technically, there's just not enough of them to make it meaningful.
But I still think probably satisfactory.
Oh yeah. It's nothing they've included actively works against what they're setting out to do.
And what about feedback? What were they told to do?
So again, this is another one where they weren't sure about the core dynamic they were going to include. So to start with, they were thinking about a survival type game with keys, ammo, health pickups, and things like that.
Yep.
However, based on the feedback we received during the lab, the creative drive was shifted towards making a destruction game and focusing more on the mechanics and tutorial aspects of the level. Okay.
So in terms of...
They haven't really described the feedback that they got that helped them make that decision.
And in terms of... So I can... It looks to me that what they have is they had a survival game and they've stripped away everything and just left the destruction bit of it.
Yes.
Without actually adding anything in that made it a destruction dynamic, emphasise the destruction dynamic.
So they also included some feedback that they got when they were playtesting it with other students. So they mentioned that getting through the doors was problematic, so that's why they made them green.
Okay, which is a good job because it's still a bit problematic, I think.
Also, they changed the camera angle slightly to make things more to make it clearer what was going on, and also they added the score counter to sort of emphasise how many zombies had been killed.
Okay.
I think that's a nice addition.
So I think they've done a decent job of saying what their feedback was, but they could have been clearer on the
They could have
specifics.
articulated it a little bit better.
So I think it feels to me like is a pass. Maybe pass to so passes feedback was not well articulated, but some changes have been made with limited success. I would say some changes have definitely been made with limited success. And the feedback is it articulated well or not? Well,
I wouldn't say so.
You're missing out on the detail.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know why. So why did they decide to go for destruction rather than survival? Yeah. Why did they decide removing those elements?
What caused that sudden pivot?
Okay. So that kind of leaves us with a pass mark.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's move on to the next game.
Our last game is
our last game of this batch is Mirage.
Promising name.
So this is one of those games that's got an interesting mechanic, and therefore I want to see how well it tutorializes it to somebody that doesn't know it.
Okay, Mirage. Press space to start.
This does have something.
Okay. So I saw this, but I didn't play it.
Okay.
So I don't think this will be quite an honest test.
That's okay.
Because I kind of know the principle, right? So we've got A to D. There we go. You control yourself and your Mirage. Oh yeah, there we are. Snowy corners are slippery. Watch your step. So, space to jump, presumably. Yeah. Okay, this is cool.
I do like the music for this game.
I also love the snow effect. Simple things, isn't it? But
it sets the tone and your expectations, I think, and that's really important with, especially sort of a puzzle game. If you have racing music, then that can be quite jarring. Actually, this is quite a leisurely paced game.
Oh, I can't believe I just did that. Walk into the igloo to finish the level.
Did we make a mistake asking Dave to play the platform attacks?
Yeah, you'll be here for ages. The mistake they made was making me read something just as I came to the last jump.
Ooh.
Right, level complete. Alright, so next level. Level 2. This is all very nice as well, those transitions. It's kind of above and beyond, I think.
They've got a restart level option at the end of the tutorial level in case you want to reinforce those elements.
That is very cute. The little animated snowman.
So initially, when they were designing this, that little snowman animation did something totally different, which they sort of swapped around with the checkpoint, and I think it worked way, way better as a checkpoint.
So... oops.
Again, a little death sound.
That's cute.
I feel a little bad at the death sound.
Oh no! Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself. No.
Alright, this time for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Alright, so while you're while you're completing that, Callum, what do you reckon about the presentation of this game?
I think it's a very cohesive experience. All of the art assets go together quite nicely, and I think both the visuals and the audio combine very well together to set the tone of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The look and feel of it is really nice. It's all very consistent.
Yeah, I would say it's above and beyond actually in terms of the graphics and the audio, what we really require. In terms of the information design, there's some really nice little things in here, like the just the little animated snowman checkpoints. There's some more stuff here, right? And in an unbalanced world, you will sometimes be separated from your Mirage. Cool. Okay. You cannot be apart from your Mirage forever. Once the time reaches 0, you will perish. Collect watches to extend your time apart. Okay, so my Mirage is completely... Teleporters reunite you, resetting the timer. Okay, well that's quite cute. That's very nice.
So initially, that was what the snowman did, and I think the fact that they changed it with something like a portal to sort of emphasise the fact that you're teleporting back together.
So I have kind of something interesting going on here.
So you basically encountered the first major puzzle here, Dave.
Yeah. I have no choice, but okay.
So I like the fact that they've also duplicated that timer above the heads of whichever character you happen to be looking at.
Yeah, because sometimes it's more important to look at one than the other.
And just reinforcing that information design element, I think it makes it very easy to see.
I have a feeling I'm going to be really, really bad at this bit.
Anyway, so in terms of presentation, so if we said, what have we got for excellent? Key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, good use of audio.
Oh. I mean, I would say that in terms of the graphics and the audio, as I said, I think it's above and beyond what we demand.
So if we were saying it was praiseworthy, that would be novel yet clear ways of showing the key information, consistent thematically, resonant graphics, and excellent use of audio effects and music. It depends what we mean when we say novel ways of showing information. So obviously the timer is going to be very key for some of these puzzles, and it's shown over the head of both characters.
I mean, I think it's probably halfway between...
I think you're right.
I think the snowmen are relatively novel. I think the timers are a really nice touch that I haven't seen in a game before. So like in that sense...
I think my problem is I'm not thinking properly about what I'm doing. It's like your attention needs to be on different bits.
It is. So here comes your first risk-reward choice. You can decide the easier path with the timer, or the harder path without it.
You might need that timer, otherwise you're in trouble.
I know, but I can't get that.
Can't get it. There we go.
Oh! I was looking at the bottom one. Okay.
So about the gameplay.
So, despite the fact I appear to be struggling and I'm appallingly bad at it, it's actually pretty straightforward to... See, so my problem is I keep concentrating on one and not the other, but that's the whole point, right?
So in terms of the gameplay, what mechanics have we got here? We've got the Mirage, we've got movement.
So yeah, we've got a standard platformer, sort of move and jump, but then we've got obviously the key one, which is being separated from your Mirage. The timer, I guess, being able to pick up things that extend that.
I think in terms of when we talk about complementary mechanics, I think the synchronization points, the portals, the timers, and the separation all do gel quite nicely together to create different effects. So the fact that you can have puzzles that are just symmetrical platforming and a variety of different ways between the synchronization points and just using the terrain to reunite your characters means that actually there's quite a good set of complementary mechanics here. What do you think of the controls, Dave?
Well, I was trying to say, despite the fact I'm doing appallingly badly, it is actually very controllable. I'm very glad to get to this snowman, I'll be honest. I mean, it's when you're past certain line, use the teleporters. So I can presumably do that. Okay. Yeah, it's nicely conceived. There we go. So in terms of the gameplay, I think you clearly have meaningful play. It's clearly challenging.
Here's another mechanic as well. So pressure plates. So you both have to stand on your plate to remove the barrier.
So I have to go and get them over here, and then we do that. And if I
really like the fact that I'm skipping ahead a little bit, unfortunately, but I really like the fact that you get a chance to really practice your platforming skills in that separation before they try to introduce pressure plates or these barriers.
Yeah, so sort of keeping the sort of pacing and the difficulty levels sort of at a nice rate. So this was one of the things, so during development, they had some of these puzzles. The way they'd sort of laid out some of their puzzles felt a bit of an odd difficulty curve. So they had some of these misaligned ones before they had just the jumping puzzles.
This is bad. I need to get him up there.
Alright, so if we stick to gameplay for a second. So wide set of complementary mechanics, intuitive and smooth, usable controls that lead to enjoyable and meaningful play. Do you agree with that, Dave?
Yes, I think so. I'm finding it really hard, but that's fine. Hard is fine. We talked about the difficulty between difficult and challenging and punishing rather.
Yes.
And this isn't punishing; it's just difficult.
I think it really emphasises that with the very fast iteration cycles.
Yeah, the fact that you get those checkpoints before these really difficult sections.
So does it have a wide set of complex and complementary mechanics with novel yet intuitive controls for the prize-worthy category?
So I wouldn't say the controls themselves are necessarily novel. I think something like the mechanics interesting. I think I've seen games like with a similar sort of like you control a reflection of yourself kind of thing.
Sure, it's done very well though.
The other aspect, of course, is the sustained, enjoyable and meaningful play.
Yeah, I mean, So for me, it's definitely it's at least at the excellent level, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think it does have a complex set of mechanics through the interaction of those two different characters. I mean, you've got a number of different mechanical elements. And it has the potential, I think, for just these mechanics have potential for lots of interesting levels, right?
I mean, certainly every level they've put in this tutorial have been refreshing to play, and challenging in a different way, which is nice.
So I'm not sure if it quite goes up to the prize-worthy level. Although there's they've done a lot here. I mean, lots of terms of the.
Do you think it's borderline?
Yeah, I'd be happy to put it as borderline. I think
certainly like the now got crates as well.
So it's halfway between excellent and prize-worthy. Bugs?
None that I've discovered yet, and it is quite complex.
It's a lot of complexity, and it seems to work really well.
So I'm pretty sure they were saying the first couple of levels where you're not supposed to be able to separate it from your Mirage, they deliberately put in a script that just makes sure you're always aligned, so you can't accidentally glitch between the two.
Which is probably a good idea. So I think it's definitely excellent. There are no bugs despite the complexity of the game. So this is just about how complex it is. Do you think this is significantly complex? Is it above and beyond what we would normally expect to see? I think if it was just one half, right, I think that would be the level of what we would. But because you've got the Mirage as well, I actually would put this in the prize-worthy category. I think they've executed a game really well here.
I'd also point out that for a Unity game, I haven't seen any physics bugs, and that to me, like just that crate falling there didn't glitch out on the way, and to me that's actually quite unusual for a Unity game.
So let's go on and have a think about the level design. We've seen quite a few of the levels now. So what do we think?
I think it's got a really nice progression that clearly expects you to use the mechanics it's introduced more and more and in more sophisticated ways, and certainly tests you in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, as I said, I think they've developed something which is quite hard, and they could have had a gentler introduction. But given that it's only a prototype and they want to get to the meat of it and demonstrate their dynamic thing, I can kind of understand why they've done it. But the levels are bringing together all sorts of different elements, the wide range of mechanics. I think what's possibly missing is the varied pacing. I kind of feel like it got difficult, and then I'm missing the bits where you solve a complex puzzle and then there's a nice bit of progress where you can kind of just enjoy controlling the two characters and kind of solving a simple puzzle. It needs to have that bit more variety, but that would be the prize-worthy thing, I think.
Along the same lines, I think it is nice that they've got the snowmen after each of the complex puzzles now. Yeah. There is definitely an element of satisfaction to seeing it in that sense.
Oh yeah, I would call it more about thank God I've got a snowman.
Words I never thought.
So one of the things we talked about a lot is whether or not there are alternative paths through the level and choices to make.
So there are in this game. Oh no!
So it frequently presents you with the choice of, do you want to go for a timer or do you want to just try and watch this segment? And I think this is an obvious one here.
Yeah, there you go. So link to you're right. So that's nice, right? So I actually think in terms, and there's quite a lot of it as well. There's a lot of good level design here. So I think I would be tempted to put this at Prizeworthy again. I think the level design is really very nice.
You might be right.
What about the tutorial elements?
I think they're nicely introduced. So you've got just the simple snowman at the start, saying left and right, and then you've got again sort of the set of puzzles that sort of gradually introduce new mechanics.
So I think my comment about the difficulty gradient probably applies here. I would rather have had. So there are quite a lot of levels where you started off and you could see 3 instructions. Some of those early ones, there are 3 instructions on the screen at once, each one introducing something different. And I'd almost rather have had that spread out a little bit more, kind of a bit more gradual. But other than that, they're all very effective.
I do like the fact it does give you the opportunity to practice some of the mechanics before introducing new ones as well.
The only criticism I might have, I think, would be that they've done a tell not show on quite a few bits. So they've said, get the clock to extend your time, rather than splitting you up and then showing you that when you get the time it resets.
Yeah.
So they could have done a bit more of that. I think of kind of of demonstrating to you.
We did it.
There you go. But still, I think very nice. So I think it's definitely integrated.
It's also very well polished.
It's it introduces things in a logical way. It builds what's gone on before. But for me, the kind of tell not show probably stops it being prizeworthy and brings it into a kind of an excellent category.
So I agree to an extent. So, however, they tried to do the first set of tutorials with no text whatsoever.
Yeah.
So just symbols on the snowman.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely needed some of these text things. So I agree, maybe they introduced sort of a couple sort of too much in too quick succession. Yeah. But they absolutely needed them.
So my point though is, so that bit there, snowy corners are slippery, watch your step, right? So why not just show you?
So that's interesting. That actually came about because I noticed sometimes when you land on the corner of these platforms, you can slip off.
Yeah.
And this actually ties into the feedback. We said, this actually is not immediately obvious, and it frustrates the platforming. So that was their solution to that particular problem.
Okay. So
make it a feature.
Okay, so I mean, for me, as I said, the tutorial design I think is excellent, but it's kind of capped by that.
I would maybe say it's sort of borderline between that and prizeworthy.
And it says, so the prizeworthy stuff is introducing information and mechanics in a novel way, basically.
And it's true. So, I don't know if there are any particularly novel elements to the tutorial.
True. Yeah,
it is done really well. Well, I'll tell you what. If we're kind of a little bit of minority reporting going on, should we go for a mix between the two?
Okay.
Because they're doing a lot. Core dynamic. What did they say about their?
So the core dynamic for this one was where have we got it? Oh, that's not that one.
I think I can go for it. You read it and I'll take over.
No, that's not that one either. I think I gave it to you.
So we got the...
No.
That's... Oh no, I'm going to write time. I hate this.
It's on the back of this one. Okay. We finally found our notes. So the core dynamic for this one, as you might expect, was spatial reasoning. Partly because the primary Mirage mechanic, you're having to reason over 2 sort of separate spaces at once.
Yeah, I'm doing really well at that.
So having to sort of keep an eye on the space surrounding each of your characters and making sure that they're both able to progress safely, as well as the simpler elements like pushing blocks onto pressure plates and things like that. So I think. So I'm interested as to why they decided to include the timing element of it. Would you say that helps the spatial reasoning, or would you say it detracts from it?
So ordinarily, I would say detracts, but the fact that you can see most of the puzzle and quickly reset and the timer will reset with you, or indeed you can reset the timer just by aligning.
I think that
suggests to me that you have those respites to really focus on solving the problem.
Yeah, I think so. I think the fact that the timer is part of the puzzle is what makes it okay.
I think that's the thing. It adds an element of having to. I mean, it adds pressure to it, and that's sort of okay. But it means that getting yourself back in sync is very important for the rest of the puzzle.
I think there's two very important aspects to this game. One is the actual solution to the puzzle, such as how do you align your characters and put the crates in and things in such a way that you can reach the end of the level. But there's also definitely another precision platforming element to this as well.
Oh.
And
what you say?
It's absolutely demonstrated.
Yeah.
I think it all ties in actually quite nicely into that spatial reasoning core dynamic. As both sort of a mental and
and there's nothing to distract you, right? There's no other elements going on. I mean, as you said, the timer element and the collection element, they're all in service to the reasoning.
So if you look at the excellent boundary for this core dynamic, so a clear core dynamic suits the theme of the game and is well supported by the integrated set of mechanics with appropriate audio-visual choices.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds pretty fitting. So to improve on that, it'd have to be a clear dynamic suits the theme of the game and that is entirely supported by well-integrated set of mechanics and resonant audio-visual choices. And it might even be pushing that boundary.
Yes, I think kind of the resonant audio-visual stuff because they've done such a good job with that.
It really does just again set that tone and pace.
Even the whole
timer changing colour as it ticks down.
Yeah, but also even the whole theme. You know, it's the snowy theme with the kind of the reflection, the ice. Kind of it all kind of works. It's very nice.
It's interesting you say that. I would say you find Mirages more often in hot places than snowy places.
Oh yeah, it's not Mirage is wrong. It should be called Reflection, right? But in terms of the dynamic itself.
So do you reckon on the boundary there between excellent and praiseworthy, or do you think it tips over into praiseworthy as well?
I think I would. I think I might put it as praiseworthy. I just think. I mean, you could nitpick a little bit, but I think that's fine. What do they say for their feedback?
So feedback, they sort of identified two key points of feedback that they got in the feedback session. Firstly, that their initial puzzles were completely linear, so they didn't have that risk-reward balance.
Yep.
So to address that, they added the whole. That's why they added the timer mechanic. So you could choose to pick a more difficult route that gives you a timer, or you could pick an easier route without the timer, so you have to sort of get through it faster.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely sort of enabled them to include that sort of balancing risk-reward.
Yes. So that's quite good, actually.
And the other bit they mentioned was didn't provide the player with the feeling of a single core dynamic, even though it had the puzzle elements of a spatial reasoning game, because it had a collection objective. That's right. It had sort of coins placed throughout a level that you had to collect.
Oh, right, okay.
That sort of detracted from that core dynamic a little bit.
Absolutely.
As well as and that's right, it started with each level was timed, so you had to get to the end within a certain amount of time or it would totally reset. So
there you get the kind of so you have a real conflict there, I guess.
Yeah, so they replaced the timer with these individual sections, so forcing you to sort of navigate the spatial reasoning section rather than just getting to the level as fast as you could.
I think they clearly responded really nicely to what we said, and it works really well.
I'm almost tempted to say that lands them in praiseworthy again, because changing the timer mechanic to relate to just that sort of the sub bit of the spatial reasoning puzzle rather than the entire level, I'd say that's almost that's an imaginative change.
Yes, you're right, and it does change it. So if we put that in, I mean they've done a really nice job. I mean, it's a beautifully executed game. I mean, I think it goes above and beyond what we need in a lot of the kind of categories that we have. And I think in the things that we were really asking for, the tutorial,
they've made sure the
core dynamic, they've really thought it through. They've responded well to the feedback. So yeah, really good job, guys. Nice job. Okay, that's a nice way to end because that's our last game. So, thank you very much for listening. And we're going to be back with some more games in our next video. See you then.